All right, now let's get a little more positive. Let's get back to the good things, the good stuff about the NFL draft. So we're going to go with your 5 favorite teams, and then I'll go with my favorite picks, and then you guys don't want to miss it. We're going to have our game right after this segment. So,
ooh. And I feel like we already sort of did your rant.
Yeah, it was basically, there you go. That's my rant of the week.
I think we got that out of the way. All right, so winners time.
Winners time. Number 5.
At number 5, I have the Green Bay Packers because I like both of their picks, and not necessarily what I thought they would do, but I think they really added to their strength. And that was a common theme that we discussed throughout the draft, was adding to the strength of their team. And when looking at the Green Bay Packers and their defense, they added both the Smith brothers on the outside, on the edge, and they have Clark. They have also Daniels inside. And they add another piece there with Rashawn Gary, who's just a chess piece that they can move around their defensive line. He has a lot of versatility. I think he's a good value at 12 because he's a game wrecker. He can play inside, he can play outside, and he can do a lot of different things for this defense, and he adds another piece to the strength of their defense. And then when you go at 21, you impact your secondary with Darnell Savage, who was getting a lot of hype near the draft of being picked at the end of the first round, and he was. And I think this is a great pick because he is a player that can play a little bit of slot corner. He can play safety. I think he's a lot like Devin McCourty, so obviously I like him. He's aggressive in the run game, good tackler, very fast, good athlete, ball hawk. So I think they get 2 very good players, but they get them not necessarily at positions of need, but they get them at positions that strengthen what they already have, which takes their secondary and their defensive line and their front 7 in general to the next level. That's why I have the Packers at 5.
Yeah, I agree. Rashawn Gary, I really like what I saw out of him from Michigan. He's a different kind of linebacker than we see from other guys in this draft, like Devin White, like Devin Bush as well. So I like what I saw to that. It's going to help their team. Not necessarily the piece that they need, but it was going to strengthen them up, so that's good. And Darnell Savage, I think for 21, he's interesting, but I understand why they went for it. I like it. So, yeah, I can understand why they're here at number 5 for you. Number 4.
At number 4, I have another team who picked twice. I just think when you pick twice, there's a lot more influence for me to, be a winner. So at number 4, when I initially didn't really understand their pick in their first pick, which was Chris Lindstrom, it made sense when they picked Caleb McGarry at the end of the first round. They are the only team, Dylan, since 1967 that will have a first rounder at every position on their offensive line. That is the Atlanta Falcons.
That's insane.
That is insane. So I know that James Carpenter isn't a great first rounder, but he's a first rounder nonetheless. So they're going to have Jake Matthews, James Carpenter, Alex Mack, Chris Lindstrom, and Caleb McGarry along their offensive line. And we know that football, as much as it's become a spread offense, as much as it's become receivers and all this passing game and all this sort of stuff. Well, first off, you need protection for that quarterback to pass the ball. And second, we know that it's still won and lost along the offensive line and the defensive line. So the Atlanta Falcons, they addressed one of their bigger needs that not a lot of people were really looking at. A lot of people were looking at defensive line or possibly secondary. But offensive line has been a big need for this team for the last 2 seasons, I would say. And they basically fill out their offensive line. They got a new starting 5 that could potentially not only impact the play of Matt Ryan and give him more time in the pocket, but they have 2 starters in their offensive line for another 5 years, and they can impact their running game with Devontae Freeman, which I think was more ineffective than they wanted it to be last year. So that could possibly help them this upcoming season offensively, get back to what they want to be offensively. And they have Dirk Cotter coming in as their new offensive coordinator. I think their offense has a lot of promise with this new rebuilt offensive line. Matt Ryan at quarterback, Austin Hooper, Mohamed Sanu, Julio Jones, Calvin Ridley, and Devontae Freeman. This could be an electric offense that could potentially put the Atlanta Falcons back in the playoffs because of these 2 picks.
Yeah, like you brought up at 14, it was a little questionable. When they got it at number 31, it all made sense. This Atlanta Falcons team's going to get a lot healthier, so the problems that we saw in 2018 are going to be helpful. They're going to come back in 2019, hopefully with a bang. And helping those guys build for Matt Ryan is going to create some good head of steam going into 2019. So definitely like the pick there. At number 3, who you got?
At number 3, I have the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah.
Now, they were a team that had to trade up to get what they wanted, but they've needed this position for so long, Dylan. And we've talked about it, through and through, that the Steelers have needed an inside linebacker, and Devin Bush is exactly what they have needed since really Ryan Shazier has gone out with injury. They get a fast playmaking linebacker who is great recognition, great pursuit, and is just a really, really, again, fast player. And as I always bring up, as Michael Lombardi says, when your middle of your defense is slow, your defense is slow. Now their defense isn't as slow. They have a linebacker that takes their defense to the next level, who can cover running backs, who can help cover tight ends, who's going to clean up the trash in the run game or over the middle of the field against those crossing routes that usually are pretty effective against the zone coverage of the Steelers. And they get to maintain what they are. They get a perfect player for their type of scheme, and they fill a major need. Even if they had to trade up, I think it was an excellent trade and an excellent pick.
Yeah, I'm going to be talking about Devin Bush in my list here, so there you go. But just to give you a short analysis for me, I really like it. You're going to trade up for this guy. You got to feel good about him. And like Mitch said, really need that position. So you'll get a little bit more when I go into my list, but good analysis there. Number 2, who do you have?
At number 2, I have the Buffalo Bills with Ed Oliver.
The Billies.
Yes, Ed Oliver, I think, is just like Bush is perfect for the Steelers defense, Ed Oliver is perfect for the Bills defense and what they want to do. And they needed a defensive tackle. They needed an interior pass rusher. They needed a pass rusher in general. And we know that teams are starting to attract and sign and trade for and pick those interior pass rushers because they know that's the way to win in the NFL today. So Ed Oliver, defensive tackle, he's going to be potentially a very good player, potentially a superstar in the NFL. He has all the traits, and I'm very fascinated to see how they're potentially going to use him inside Sean McDermott's defense. And we know that Sean McDermott's defense traditionally has had strength at the D tackle position. And that's exactly what they did here at this pick. And I love this pick. And the value is there. They didn't have to trade for it. He fell right to them.
Yeah, I mean, the number 9 pick, I feel like that is just the perfect position for the Bills to get. This is a big dude. I mean, this is somebody that's going to really beef up that defensive line. He just missed out on my top 5 picks because I go for a little bit of value. But in terms of a player prospect, I mean, you can't go wrong here. Got to like what the Bills did. And considering it was their only pick at the first round, I think they hit the nail right on the head. So good stuff there.
And I did feel like it was value considering Furrow went 4th overall.
Yeah, which is more of our issues with the Raiders. They could have gotten either. So, yeah, I do like that pick.
And I also think, I don't know how you feel. You probably feel differently. But I think he's a better player than – I think he could potentially be better than Josh Allen. I think he could be better than Hawkinson. I think he could be better than Daniel Jones. I think he could be better than Devin White. The only players that I think are probably going to be better than him are Williams and Bosa.
You know how I feel about Allen, which I'll talk about in a little bit. But otherwise, yeah, I mean, I think he'll definitely be better than I think he'll be better than Hawkinson. He'll definitely be better than Jones. Devin White, I think, is interesting, but I think he will be better.
He has that ceiling where he could be the absolute best player in this draft.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It kind of just depends on how we see it going forward. But I do really like the prospect of Ed Oliver. Number 1, who is the top team for the first round of this draft?
The Washington Redskins.
Ooh.
You got to know it's the Washington Redskins.
Yeah.
If you say anything but the Washington Redskins, I got to judge your analysis on the draft. Okay, so 15th overall, they don't trade up, which we made a big point during our live stream. every team except Baker Mayfield has to trade up to get their quarterback. The Redskins still got their quarterback, the future of their franchise, a guy I think is going to be a franchise quarterback at number 15 without having to trade up. They didn't have to trade up one pick. They just sat there and got Haskins. And then what do? They trade up and they get one of the top 5, easily top 5 edge players in this class in Montez Sweat, which I think was an excellent trade when they didn't really have to do much here. They didn't really have to trade, a lot for the Colts pick. So I think they got 2 really good players and they addressed 2 major needs at 2 of the biggest, most important positions in the NFL, in the modern NFL. And they got 2 good players who I'm completely sold on.
Absolutely. I think with Haskins, you thought they were going to have to move up, and getting them at 15 was just like, thank you, Giants. Thank you to the service of the rest of the NFL. We got our franchise quarterback, and it cost us nothing. And then Montez Sweat, we were saying the whole, probably after pick 15, we're like,
is this team going to pick Montez Sweat? Maybe this is Montez Sweat. Maybe that's Montez Sweat.
Somebody's going to get him at some point, right?
And if they are right, and maybe Montez Sweat doesn't have like this heart issue or whatever, and whatever surrounding him is not a big deal, man, this is the steal of the draft.
Absolutely. Which is why, segue, number 5, best pick for me in the draft was Montez Sweat. There you go. There's your little segue. I really like what they were able to get here with this top 5 pick, or with my number 5 pick. 27. I mean, when I made this list, I tried to go based off of value and how good I think the team was going to do with their selection and how they fit with that team. So when I feel like Montez Sweat, they really needed an edge rusher. They needed somebody to come out there and make big plays. And Montez Sweat, who we rated in the top 5 for edge rushers in a very loaded class for this position. You really like what you see out of this kid, and having him fall all the way to 27, great value. I know they traded up to get him, but 27, like I'm gonna be like, yeah, hell yeah, let's go for it. If he's still on the board at this
Actually,
time,
it was 26, but not
26. Okay, sorry about that. But still, at 26, I'm going for him. I'm going to rush to get this guy, no matter what. If it's a big need for me, and for the Redskins, it was. So I really like that at number 5. Number 4, you brought it up as well. Devin Bush for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Again, this is a position they really needed. They've been so slow at the linebacker position. Shazier's, been out for the last couple of years, so they needed somebody to replace this guy. And here comes Devin Bush, the guy from Michigan. He's fast. He's quick. He's very athletic. He fits what I would consider the Steelers mold. And for a linebacker position, they needed to get a lot better. That and corner were their 2 biggest positions, but I feel like they could get somebody really good still in the second round. But this guy you needed to get right now. And when do the Steelers ever trade in the draft? Like never, right?
Never. So
they felt super confident in getting this guy, moving up to get this guy, because somebody was going to get him sooner rather than later in the draft, and then the next probably 2 or 3 picks. So getting this guy on your team, very solid, fits your mold. I really enjoyed this pick. Even though I'm not the biggest Steelers fan coming into 2019, I think this is a big need that they had to get done. So here you go, number 4. Number 3, this might be an interesting one because I didn't talk about this a lot during the draft, but I really have been sold on it as we go through. Christian Wilkins for the Miami Dolphins at number 13.
All right, let's hear it.
I'm sold on this guy. I think he was the best defensive lineman for the Clemson Tigers last season.
I agree.
So already got me sold. Second, Pharrell was drafted 9 picks ahead of him. So in terms of value, I think the Dolphins did pretty well. And third, the Dolphins are going to be focusing on a quarterback for next year. I think they're going for Tua. So the question was, when we were coming in, was it going to be a quarterback or was it going to be a defensive lineman? Because they have a lot of holes to fill. But when you have a guy like Wilkins coming in, pressuring that defensive line, making sure that he can get that right kind of movement, his big body frame, his big size gets the job done. I think it really does help the Dolphins in quite a big way. I don't know what he's going to do his rookie year, but based on the overall prospect that I think about him, I'm excited because Miami doesn't have the whole lot of guys that I'm like looking forward to watching every single week. But I think this guy is going to be one of those guys that as the season goes on and as his career goes on, he's going to be one of those guys. So that's why I got him here at number 3. I know it's a little different one compared to what some other guys have here, but I just like that the Dolphins went for it. They got Christian Wilkins. It's a solid pick. At number 2, I got Josh Allen of the Jaguars. Now, if you know me,
For some reason, I thought this was going to be number 1 for you.
no, I got it. Well, we'll talk about it in a
I
second.
didn't have him on my list, if you noticed.
I know. That's why I was. My thing about this is that first of all, I did say in yesterday's video, if there was one person to be in the Hall of Fame from this draft, it'd be him. Maybe there's a little overreaction. Maybe it's my number 1 guy, but I'm going to put this in here for a reason. This is a great value because when we were discussing this at number 4 and number 6, both teams we have as losers, we're thinking Josh Allen's going to be in one of these 2 teams. One of these 2 camps is going to be like, all right, we have this guy set in there, and they didn't. And then when we were so shocked that Daniel Jones was picked, we're like, okay, well, maybe the Lions are going to get him because the Jaguars don't need him. But then the Jaguars got him, and they just basically upgraded their position to another level because we know what Ngakoue does. We know what Calais Campbell does. They're 2 great players at this position. Miles Jack is also on that defensive line. A whole bunch of great talent there. So when you have one of the best positions in the league and then you get a talent like this, why the hell not? You just make yourself even better at this position. So a lot of teams went for what their fit was on their team, but the Jaguars were like, let's get the best player available because we did not think he was going to be available at number 7. So the team really adjusted to him, and I feel like Josh Allen, the great talent that he has, I'm most sold on him more than almost anybody else in this draft. I feel like he's going to be very, very good. So that's why I have him here at number 2. But number 1 is Quinn Williams for the New York Jets. This guy was number 2 on my draft board in terms I didn't want to see. It's hard for me to justify.
No Haskins.
No Haskins. He's definitely worth the pick. Still probably 6 or 7 on this list if you want to give me, if it was a top 10 list. But I think for me with Quinn Williams is that he's number 3 overall, but he could have easily gotten number 1 in most drafts. The guy's a freak of nature. He's going to be a big presence for the Jets, who have an okay, I mean borderline okay defensive line. But when you come in with this guy right here, he just beefs it up to a whole nother level. He could be the next Aaron Donald. He's being compared to that kind of level. Which if you're going to be compared to that, you better be having something going right for you. The Jets secondary is shaping up to be really, really awesome in 2019. 2018, they were still pretty good, so it's an even bigger year. So when you have your front 7, which we've seen in the NFL over the course of the last couple of seasons, where teams have really benefited from having that great front 7 more than anything else, the Jets are really getting a superstar talent that could make it into the Hall of Fame. I feel like he has the talent to do so, and the Jets, they need to cheer on for something. So I feel like they're going to get this guy, and they should cherish it because he is a really, really solid talent. So I am here at number 1.
I think New York fans will love him.